If you want to understand why Europe suddenly talks like it's 1983, start in 2022. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has turned from a regional war into a continent-wide stress test. The most nervous are the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, small democracies on NATO's frontline, one miscalculation away from Russia's border. Their core question is painfully simple: if Ukraine fell under attack, why wouldn't they be next? That fear isn't abstract, it translates into budgets, bunkers, brigades, and even electricity grids. First, money. NATO data for 2025 show a historic surge in European defense spending, with all allies projected to hit or exceed the 2% of GDP benchmark for the first time. The eastern flank leads the pack, with Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia clustering around the 3 to 4% range, a multiple of what many Western capitals spent a decade ago according to NATO and independent trackers. Lithuania has already legislated a floor of 3% from 2025 and is now targeting 5 to 6% from 2026, a budgetary jump equal to roughly €2-3 billion a year for a €60-ish billion economy, according to Reuters and AP. Why does this matter? Because deterrence is arithmetic. Brigades, air defense batteries and stockpiles only appear if you pay for them. Second, troops on the ground. Germany has begun its first permanent foreign deployment since World War II, the 45th Armored Brigade in Lithuania, moving from a few hundred soldiers today toward roughly 5,000 by 2027, with Lithuania building the bases and ranges to host them, according to The Guardian and Reuters. The Bundeswehr confirms the forward defense role. This isn't a symbolic flag planting. It plugs a hole along the Suwałki Gap, the 65-kilometer corridor linking Poland and Lithuania, where a surprise thrust from Belarus and Kaliningrad could split NATO's Baltic allies from the rest of Europe. At the alliance level, the 2023 Vilnius summit approved regional defense plans designed to move from tripwire presence to true forward defense, meaning pre-positioned forces and the ability to fight on day one, not counterattack weeks later, according to NATO's communiqué, and analyses by RAND and ICDS. In the air, NATO's Baltic air policing is being upgraded with a rotational ground-based air defense model, so it's not just jets, but also missiles and radars that close the skies, according to NATO's Air Command and SEPA. When you see Italian F-35s or Swedish Gripens scrambled over the Baltic, that's deterrence in practice, and on some days in 2025, they were intercepting Russian aircraft accused by Estonia of violating its airspace for up to 12 minutes, a charge Moscow denied, according to The Guardian and Reuters. Third, societies are hardening, literally. Latvia is writing civil protection into building codes and financing upgrades. In 2025 it earmarked over €22.2 million of EU funds to adapt 570 public shelters, capacity near 400,000 people, while adopting a new law that makes shelters mandatory in categories of new or renovated buildings, according to LSM, Latvia's public broadcaster. Surveys show 1,562 sites already meet safety criteria, with thousands more basements being inspected or adapted. Costs for a national network are on the order of €100 million just for renovations, according to LSM and BNN. Estonia has designated public shelters for at least 100,000 people and, from 2026, will require new public buildings to incorporate protected spaces by law, a shift from guidance to obligation, according to the Estonian Rescue Board and ERR. Lithuania has moved fastest, from 1,835 shelters in late 2022 to 4,438 by August 2024, over a 140% increase in less than 2 years, and is renovating dozens more in Vilnius alone after Russian drone spillovers near its border, according to BNN and LRT. Quantitatively, this is still short of Cold War level coverage, but the trend line is steep. Six-figure shelter capacity in Estonia, hundreds of thousands of places funded in Latvia, thousands of facilities mapped in Lithuania, all since 2022. Fourth, manpower. Latvia reintroduced compulsory service in 2024, males 18 to 27, 11-month terms, fines for ignoring summons, moving from volunteer intakes in 2023 to mandatory drafts this year as the training pipeline scales, according to the Library of Congress and LSM/FPRI. Lithuania reinstated the draft back in 2015 and sustains annual intakes of several thousand for 9 months, keeping reserve numbers high, according to the Library of Congress and official Lithuanian sources. Estonia never dropped conscription, and has extended most service to 11 months to ensure unit readiness according to ERR and the Estonian Defence Forces. Why does conscription return? Because the math of high-intensity war is unforgiving, divisions burn through personnel, reserves must be trained before, not after, crisis. Fifth, energy and hybrid threats, the quiet battlefront. In February 2025, the 3 Baltic states disconnected from the Soviet-era Brel grid and synchronized their electricity systems with continental Europe, a €1.6 billion, multi-year project pulled forward because of Ukraine, according to INSO-E, Reuters, FT and ERR. The strategic logic is obvious: if Moscow can't flip your power off, it loses a peacetime coercion tool. This shift came after a series of suspected sabotage and accident incidents at sea, including the 2023 Baltic connector pipeline damage between Finland and Estonia, which Finnish investigators linked to a Chinese-owned ship's lost anchor, with Beijing later acknowledging the vessel caused the damage, while intent remained disputed, according to AP, ULA and ERR. For residents in Tallinn or Kaunas, that translates into siren tests, power island drills, and where is the nearest shelter? Apps. Sixth, industry. Europe is relearning the economics of mass. The EU's ASAP program put €500 million into unblocking munitions bottlenecks and aims to lift production capacity toward 1 million shells a year, according to the European Commission and the European Parliament brief. Germany's Rheinmetall opened what it calls Europe's largest ammunition plant in September 2025 after a year 500-600 million build, with a ramp from tens of thousands of 155mm rounds in 2025 toward 350,000 by 2027. Parallel investments in explosives and powder spreading to Romania and Lithuania, according to Rheinmetall releases, AP, EDR and Reuters. These are not boutique lines. They are the steel and chemicals backbone of sustained deterrence. If Ukraine burns through 200,000 plus shells in a few months of heavy fighting, NATO must be able to replace that repeatedly. Now, the tough part: does any of this actually make the Baltics safer, or does it escalate the spiral? The evidence points to deterrence gains that outweigh escalation risks, if implementation stays on schedule. On the plus side, forward-stationed heavy forces in Lithuania shrink response times from days to hours, air defense rotation adds teeth to Baltic skies, and synchronized power grids reduce Moscow's blackmail leverage. Civil defense investments that cover even 20 to 30% of urban populations can cut casualties by orders of magnitude in the opening hours of a missile campaign. And the spending surge is real. Compared to 2014, Lithuania's defense outlays have grown more than 5-fold in real terms indices, with Latvia and Estonia not far behind, according to NATO releases and allied summaries. On the downside, capability gaps remain. NATO's own experts warn that ammunition stockpiles and enablers, air defense interceptors, counter-UAS, electronic warfare, are still tight relative to a major war scenario. Civil shelter coverage is uneven, especially in Latvia where many basements flunk safety standards and adaptation is slow, and Allied air policing, while responsive, still reacts to incursions rather than denying them outright, according to ICDS, LSM and NATO Air Command reporting. In short, deterrence is improving, but a high-tempo crisis would stress the system. So what does this mean for NATO as Ukraine fights on? Ukraine has forced Europe to quantify deterrence again, in euros, shells, shelter seats, and brigade headcounts. The Baltics are the early adopters. They legislate shelters, retrain conscripts, post German armor, harden grids, and coordinate city-to-city civil defense. If Europe is entering a new Cold War, the difference this time is that frontline societies are being rebuilt for resilience in peacetime, not just armies. The bill is heavy, defense outlays rising by double digits to a record $1.6 trillion in 2025 across NATO, with Eastern members spending 3 to 5% of GDP, according to NATO figures and Allied reporting, but the Baltics argue it is cheaper than the cost of occupation seen in Ukraine's cities. The strategic bet is clear: make any Kremlin gamble obviously unwinnable, fast. That is the domino effect of Ukraine, a cascade of sober decisions from Riga to Vilnius to Tallinn that says, we plan to be unbreakable on day one.